This novel has been celebrated as a sort of a Bible of Macedonian fiction. Stay tuned to find out why. Our kind is like the pyrrhay weed, and no army nor disease can eradicate it. The pyrrhay is a hardy grass, and some call it cocksfoot grass. Kick it, uproot it, pluck it as much as you like, it still does not die. It only needs to touch the ground, and it shoots roots. It comes to life, it sprouts. Nothing can eradicate that weed. Welcome, dear bookworm. This is Vasil, the Backwater Librarian, the channel that sheds light on books and authors unjustly neglected by BookTube. In this context, we're looking today at Pyrrhay, a realist modernist novel written by Macedonian author Petre M. Andreevski, first published in 1980. Set in the years around World War I, it centers around the fate and hardships of a young rural Macedonian couple from the vicinity of Demirhisar. Ion and Velika Meglenovski are far from a perfect couple, and rural life can be taxing and challenging. Through hard work and perseverance, they manage, however, to make a decent living and start their own family. Life, as simple and as monotonous as it is, does seem on the upswing when suddenly World War I hits. Ion gets forcefully recruited into the Serbian army, and Velika is left alone to fend for herself and their 5 children. Thrown into the meat grinder of the World War I Balkan theater, Ion is turned into just another foot soldier, one bullet or grenade away from death. Meanwhile, Velika is left alone to her own devices to make ends meet and take care of their 5 children. In the ensuing years of war, famine, harsh weather and scarcity, will this torn apart family manage to survive both physically and mentally? I won't reveal any more of the plot in case you haven't read the book. I've recently reread it in this nice modern Macedonian edition and I quite enjoyed it. There are available translations in English, German and Croatian. You'll find all of the relevant ISBNs in the description below. This video won't contain any spoilers, so feel free to stay till the end. By the way, if you find my accent too thick, a full English transcript is available, as well as correct, manually added subtitles in at least a couple of other languages. With that out of the way, let's dive deeper into the novel itself. Apart from a frame story at the very beginning and end of the book, the main bulk of it consists of first-person narration by Ion and Velika set in consecutive chapters. This dual narration makes it so that in the pre-war section of the book we get a glimpse into the different male and female experience of the same events, while in the wartime section of the book we bear witness to the decidedly different challenges encountered by Ion and Velika and to their respective responses. The narration is direct, fast-paced and unembellished, making for a somewhat somber but also an unencumbered and surprisingly fast-paced reading experience. The language is more or less standard Macedonian, however with heavy influence from the local vernacular of Demirhisar, where the story is set, and which also happens to be the author's birthplace, but we'll touch upon that a bit later. The use of archaisms is also not infrequent, and even as a native Macedonian speaker, I had to rather guess their exact meaning from the context. One of these archaisms is Also, the eponymous Pirei, the word for the stubborn weed the Macedonian people is compared to. I can only imagine how much headache this must have caused translators. I was able to look into the German translation only and can confirm that it is a satisfactory one. Beyond this, however, I unfortunately can't give you any other guarantees. Apart from the general linguistic and stylistic markers, there is also a perceptible difference between the male narrating voice of Ion and the female one of Velika, a balance which the author has handled quite successfully. Ion's narrating style tends to be more realistic and at times even naturalistic, especially when describing battlefield wounds or injuries. He does not shy away from foul language like dropping F-bombs every now and then. His metaphors can come across as base or distasteful. Take as an example his explanation of the similarities between the South Slavic peoples. Well, once upon a time in the olden days, we must have actually been a single piece of shit, a single piece of dung. But a coach passed by and cut the dung in two with its wheel. Then another coach passed and cut the dung again. And so, as coaches came along, they sliced up the dung and we were, from a single piece, turned into many pieces of dung, of shit. I saw them all here and we all stink the same. Velika's narration, on the other hand, tends to be more guarded and modest. Being completely illiterate, not an uncommon occurrence for the time by the way, she relies on traditional folk wisdom and on proverbs to get her point across. The author, Andreevsky, is very capable of convincingly portraying a female narrative voice, something which shines through in some of his other novels as well. We've touched upon the structure, we've touched upon the language and style. Now it's time for the meat and potatoes of this novel, its themes. I would say the main and overarching theme is the struggle for survival of a Macedonian family in particular, and by extension of the Macedonian people as a whole. This is made abundantly clear from the title itself and from the much emphasized simile between the Pirei weed and the Macedonian people. It also has to be said that the novel posits an unskippable step between the entities of family and people, namely that of the village. Thus, this is not only a family saga, but also a narrative of life and death within the village as well. Although the name of Ion's village is never explicitly mentioned, the reader can conclude from context that it is actually the village of Sloeštica, the birthplace of Petrem Andreevsky. But if you think otherwise, I would be glad to hear from you in the comments. Feel free to correct me if you've come to a different conclusion. There are several important side characters in the village worth mentioning. For one, there is the interesting subplot of Mirce, Ion's brother, and his wife, Ulja. At one point, Mirce is portrayed as struggling with impotence, an absolute taboo in that day and age. Ulja, on the other hand, becomes one of the very few persons Velika can rely on for emotional and practical support during the war years. Lazar Nocheski, yes, that is Lazar, not the more usual Lazar, is kind of a village sage. The novel is peppered with his sayings and proverbs throughout. Usually, when coming to a new point in the narration, both Ion and Velika tend to open it with a saying by Lazar. So, for example, when Velika needs to gather courage and tend to her bedridden son, she recalls Lazar's saying, "Fear is frightening only to those who fear it." Lazar remains somewhat of a mysterious character in the book. We often hear about his wisdom. He's also the one who delivers that Pirei simile, but nevertheless he very rarely appears in the flesh. Last but not least, we have to mention Masa Chulumoska, part fortune teller, part witch doctor. She is the embodiment of all the popular superstition within the village and the people at large. She is the first one people tend to go to when sick or in pain. As you can well imagine, she occasionally does more harm than good. Be that as it may, it is clear that she is held in high regard by the villagers, and this nicely reflects the lofty place the author has reserved for the traditional, the superstitious, even the magical, with one word, the folklore. It seems that parallel to the real, gritty world, there exists in the novel a vaguely defined realm of the supernatural intertwined with the former. As much as this is a story of real day-to-day struggles, it is also one of petty daily apotropaic rituals and little seemingly silly superstitions. As much as it portrays a world of real-life events and calamities, it also does one where dreams predict the future and where premonitions come true. I personally really like this supernatural and rather weird aspect of the book. In a way, this is not only a novel of personal and national hardship, but also a treasure trove of Macedonian folklore. It becomes apparent that the author has done quite a bit of research into the dark alleyways of folklore, and I can only commend him for it. Okay, I've sung enough praises to both novel and author already. It's time I mention a couple of shortcomings. First of all, it becomes obvious that the author strives to find an axe to grind with neighboring nations, in particular Serbia and Bulgaria. I get it. These two went at each other's throats in World War I and poor Macedonians were caught in the crossfire. But still, it seems like he uses every possible opportunity to throw these two neighboring peoples under the bus. This is especially true for Bulgarians, for which he unashamedly digs up every old stereotype and then some. This is something which I myself, being both literally and figuratively married into Bulgarian culture, found personally offensive, to be honest. To the author's credit, there is also some intra-Macedonian social criticism as well, but it seems that more often than not he is quick to put the blame for all of Macedonia's woes on other nations' shoulders. This leads me to the second and greater flaw I find with this book, namely the perpetuation of Macedonian victimhood mentality.
You're a victim!
Reading this novel, you're left with a bit of a bitter taste in your mouth, and when you think about it, you realize why that is. It has dragged you through the mud of suffering caused by admittedly real hardships, but it doesn't seem to offer a way of growing out of it once the external circumstances change for the better. It doesn't seem to shine a ray of hope. Instead, you're led into simply embracing the suffering itself as a badge of honor and fully buying into the victimhood mentality. Being myself a Macedonian, I can confirm that this mentality is unfortunately part and parcel of our worldview, and I think that the sooner we grow out of it, the better. I'll conclude my review with a metaphor. Although these flaws do put a couple of cracks in the literary vase that is Pirey, it yet remains quite unique and intricate, and its potter is to be respected. So, my final verdict, 4 stars out of 5. You know, it seems that every nation has that one special novel which encapsulates its experience, mentality and worldview. The Greeks have, well, Zorba's the Greek. For Bulgarians it is either Under the Yoke or Baiganio, depending on whom you ask. And if you want to get familiar with Macedonian mentality with both the good and not so good side of it, you immerse yourself in Andreevsky's Pirey. That wraps it up for today, guys. I'd really like to hear from you in the comments. Have you read this book and how did you find it? Do you agree or disagree with some of the points I've made? And if you're new to this novel, I hope my video have made you interested in reading it. Also, please leave a thumbs up if you liked the video and make sure to subscribe for hidden bookish gems from the Balkans and beyond. And remember, the Backwater Librarian guides you through the obscure pathways of literature. Thank you for watching and pleasant reading.